If you'd like to support the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or monthly basis, we have a special gift for you. It's a book by author Brian Kilmeade. It's called Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. I know you'll find it really interesting. It's a wonderful hardbound book, and it's our gift to you if you choose to support the Pacific Justice Institute. Just go to our website, pji.org. That's P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. And there you can also sign up to receive our weekly newsletter called The Legal Insider. You'll find it really interesting. We'd love to also send that to you as well. But go to our website if you'd like to support our work at Pacific Justice Institute at pji.org. And we would love to send this a complimentary gift to you as a token of our appreciation for you wishing to be a part of our team and helping us make progress and accomplish what we do in the court and out of the court. Now, we have with us on the line a gentleman who I have tremendous high respect for, Dr. Jerry Johnson. You're the head of the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, or actually the National Religious Broadcasters, and you have conventions. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Hey, Brad, it's great to be with you, and certainly we enjoy the work of Pacific Justice Institute.
Well, thank you. And I always love to go to those annual conferences, the convention, if you will, for the National Religious Broadcasters. It's such a wonderful experience coming together and seeing other people doing radio and television and exchanging notes and just encouraging one another as we work hard for the cause of getting the gospel out there. And I just appreciate the fine work you're doing in helping to orchestrate that whole engine, if you will. Now, I want to ask you about what's taken place recently in terms of the Senate and appointments. As we understand it, there's something. I mean, they're doing this again and again. And then recently, there was a law professor from Notre Dame School of Law, wonderful law school. She was up for a confirmation as an appointment to an appeals court, and she was denied. Tell us the facts of what happened and why she was denied, which I think is really shocking.
Well, she was interviewed. This is Amy Barrett in the Senate. This is the process. The Senate Judiciary Committee, the top Democrat, Senator Dianne Feinstein, really attacked her suitability based on her faith. And this is the money quote. Feinstein said, based on your Catholic faith, quote, "The dogma lives loudly within you, and that's of concern," end quote. And
wow,
the Senate Minority Whip, Dick Durbin, followed up with the question, quote, "Do you consider yourself an Orthodox Catholic?" So, this was a hit piece, a hit job, a hit strategy.
Right.
But no, certainly they were speaking against her, maneuvering against her. But, actually, she was approved. And it was close. It was a 55 to 43 vote. So what you got there is 43, though, people voting against her.
Right. No, were they all Democrats or split Democrat-Republican?
Yes.
They were all Democrats.
And
okay.
All Democrats, and actually some of the Democrats ended up voting for her.
Right. I know there were a few that
Tim
did.
Kaine of Virginia, Joe Manchin, and Joe Donnelly from Indiana. So you had 3 Democrats voting for her, but the rest of them all voted against her. And, this really is concerning. And Senator McConnell, who's the leader of the Senate, said, there are no religious tests for public office in this country.
Right. The Constitution requires that there be no religious tests for people in public office. We have solid case law on that.
Yeah. And Brad, can you imagine had they interviewed a Jew in that way or a Muslim in that way?
The media would be screaming and yelling and calling for impeachment of U.S. senators, I'm sure.
And absolutely, in terms of a Muslim, you take Sharia law, you take sort of the Islamist code, which is something that is truly incompatible with the U.S. Constitution. But, nevertheless, no one is going to go there. You're not going to hear any questioning along that line, which
Right.
would have been legitimate. But, here we have someone who's a conservative Catholic, an Orthodox Catholic, a particular attack on
Right.
that basis.
Right.
And it's just got to stop.
Right. And the thing about Catholicism, whether someone's a Catholic or not, there's nothing against the Constitution about Catholicism or Protestantism or people who are sincere in their beliefs necessarily. And yet she was targeted. And my understanding is that was the only thing that these senators had on the record to have any legitimacy to targeting her was an illegitimate reason, which is the fact of her Catholic faith, her commitment to her Catholic faith. And I just find that stunning and shocking that they...
and if they'll do it to a Catholic, they'll do it to an Orthodox Protestant also. In fact, Bernie Sanders, earlier in the year, went after Russell Vought. Now, this is for the office of OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. So here's a presidential appointment that comes up for Senate confirmation. And what Sanders' team did is they did some research, and they found an article that this guy had written for the Resurgence. It was defending Wheaton College because Wheaton College had dismissed a professor that was essentially saying Muslims worship the same God or don't need to know Jesus or
right. Now,
that's
right. She was at Wheaton, which is a Christian college.
Exactly. And so the professor, the candidate, Vaught was simply making an argument that a Christian school has a right, based upon Christian doctrine, to dismiss someone, who violates their doctrinal statement. That's
right.
Essentially what the argument was not whether it was right or wrong, on the doctrinal point, but that actually if you have a doctrinal school, the teacher should uphold the doctrine and the statement
right.
of faith.
And he was an alumni. He was an alumni from Wheaton, so he actually had a personal, interest in this in particular. So he made that statement.
And so Sanders said, quote, "This is indefensible, that what you wrote is hateful and it's Islamophobic." And he closed out. Sanders said, quote, "I would simply say, Mr. Chairman, that this nominee is not really someone who is what this country is supposed to be about." So, that's Sanders, that's Feinstein. Those are the Democratic standard bearers, essentially saying, oh, it's okay to be a Catholic if you don't really believe it. It's okay to be Wheaton Christians if you don't really believe it. If you don't defend your statement of faith or the creeds or the confessions. Well, actually, no, that's what it means to be a Protestant at Wheaton. That's what it means to be a Catholic, is that you actually do believe what your church, your denomination, your institution says you believe.
Right.
But these senators are now, creating a kind of a litmus test. And, their doctrine, I would say, lives loudly within them. The doctrine that, you can't have any doctrine, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so disturbing to see people in such high levels of prominence in terms of the U.S. Senate. These aren't rookies. These are people that are highly looked up to among the leadership, at least in their own party. And what's also disturbing is the fact that I know that probably the majority of Democrats out there don't have this mindset. I like to think they don't believe in this, and I would like to think that when people hear this, and if they're a Democrat, that they would at the very least want to call their senators and say, knock it off, stop the witch hunt.
It's a new kind of inquisition,
right?
And the last one, Brad, was just recently. Sheldon Whitehouse, who's a Democrat from Rhode Island, he asked a federal district court judge nominee about his church. He said,
his church.
You remember the Falls Church Anglican Church, which broke away from the Episcopal Church because of the denomination's consecration of an openly gay bishop. So Whitehouse then proceeded to ask about 7 questions. Do you agree with your church's decision? And what he was trying to do was get this guy in a position of asking him if he could support the Supreme Court's Obergefell decision, which legalized so-called same-sex or gay marriage. And so, once again, they're attempting to use your church, mainstream, mainline, or evangelical or Catholic churches, meaning these traditional American congregations. They're trying to say, if you belong to one of these congregations, we view you with suspicion. Yeah. And so that's Whitehouse, a Democrat from Rhode Island. So They continue, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, and they're doing it again and again because I guess they feel that America's at that point where open bigotry against people of faith, of the Christian faith, whether you're Catholic or Protestant, is somehow acceptable. And that's why I want to just make my plea to the people listening to this or watching this on YouTube. Don't be silent about this. Speak up, and let your legislators know, let your people in the Senate in particular know that this kind of intolerance, this kind of bigotry against people of faith is not only unconstitutional, it's just simply not right. And I really appreciate you coming on the show to talk about this, Dr. Johnson, because the bottom line is if we don't speak up, the noose is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter around our necks until no one will be allowed to speak or profess their faith without being removed from government. And we've seen that in communist China. We've seen it in Castro's Cuba. But by golly, there's no reason that we should allow that to happen here in the United States. And that's exactly what we're watching right before our eyes taking place. Dr. Johnson, do you have any words of action that you think people need to be doing?
Well, I'll just say, a lot of your listeners aren't Catholic, but, they need to know that if they'll come for the Catholics, they'll come for you. You may not be Episcopalian or Anglican, but if they come for this Anglican guy, they'll come for you.
Right.
You might not be associated with Wheaton College, but if they'll come after Wheaton, they'll come for you. So this is a violation of the Constitution, which says there should be no religious test. And what they've done is flip that on its head.
Right.
And they've really got now a secular test, an atheistic test, a leftist kind of a test. It's surely religion.
Right.
As much as belief.
Right.
The only heresy for them is if you actually believe in some heresy.
Yeah.
There's a category of heresy.
You're right. No, but that's what we're looking at here, and it's just consuming Washington, D.C., and our communities, our universities, our schools. I want to thank you again for being on the program. Keep up your great work, Dr. Johnson, and I look forward to seeing you at the next National Religious Broadcasters Convention early next year.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, take care. So, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.